So this is a real email from somebody who built a room and was not happy with the results. Let me read some of these because I think you could relate to them, and this is kind of the nightmare story. First of all, this ended up, of course, way beyond the budget I had originally fooled myself into thinking I'd spend. Yep. So the thing I want to focus in on here, though, is the only thing that remains is the very low frequency rumble from trucks going over the overpass on the freeway about 3/4 mile away. Because the space is so much more air sound tight, that noise no longer has a way of escaping. When I compare putting my ear up against the walls, it's definitely those two walls where the low frequency noise is making its way into the studio. The two walls that he did not do real decoupling soundproofing with. Let me show you another email. Notice that the date on this email is just this past July. So the first email was in February, this is in July. He says, but the persistent fade low frequency that finds its way inside keeps me having some regret that I didn't go more all in with my west and north walls, but mainly the north wall. Let me show you one other thing. On the second half of that email, he said, I'm clearly a textbook case for some of the circumstances that have no doubt inspired a couple of your videos, including this one right now, which we're going to call him Andy from Michigan. He gave me permission to show this and make a video on him. He's a really good dude. I really want to stop bugging you, but these low frequency gremlins are making that hard. I don't want this to be you, so let me explain what went wrong in this video so that honestly you understand what's going on here and you don't make the same mistakes. All right, full disclosure before we go any further, Andy actually hired me back when I had a program called group consulting. This was kind of a low stakes, low cost environment where people could get some of my advice well in a group setting over Zoom calls, usually about 6 to 8 people. And Andy was one of those people. And coming in, he said, Wilson, I only want to work on these two walls here. I don't want to touch the other two walls. This is what I need help with. And I said, listen, Andy, fine, I'll help you, but I just want you to know up front that usually I like to treat the entire space. He said, no, I understand. I only have the budget for this. This is what I want to do. And looking back, you're going to understand why he and probably I also regret it. But what I want to say is that one of the reasons I moved away from doing group consulting, which we no longer offer, is that there's really no way to do sound isolation without looking at it as a complete and cohesive system. So the biggest mistake you'll learn from this video is how when you just approach one wall or two walls in Andy's case, you're always going to run into the same problem that he's having, which I'll explain in more detail, where you're going to hear things coming through the weak point of your room, because your room is only as strong as the weakest point. So now we do full Revit design, construction plans, we look at the whole picture, we only take on clients that we know have the budget and the focus and the entire picture of wanting to do it right. Otherwise, I'm not taking on those projects anymore for this exact reason. Let's dive in. Let's go back to the email here because I want you to look at this highlighted section here. Just by placing my ear next to either wall, it's clear which wall is doing the job of blocking out those unwanted rumbles. So he's basically saying the walls that were decoupled with genie clips and furring channel and the 2 layers of drywall are doing a way better job of blocking out the rumbles. Let me show you another thing here. This was back to his first email that he sent me in February, and he said the same thing. When I compare putting my ear up against the walls, it's definitely those 2 walls where the low frequency noise is making its way into the studio, referring to the walls that he did not soundproof fully. I want to also point out the pain that he's going through because this is really what's at stake when sound isolation goes wrong. Obviously, I'm not about to remove all my gear so I can add more layers of drywall. I just don't have it in me. That is so real. I just don't have it in me. And this is like, I feel for Andy. I really do. Then let's look at the second half of the email he sent in July. Again, this is several months later. Moving my piano out and messing with the interior is something I just can't take on again. Reiterating that same sentiment. Of course, if I had to do it all over again, I would just have removed the drywall from the north wall and installed genie clips, as I did on my south wall. Just by placing my ear next to either wall, it's clear which wall is doing the job, as I said earlier. So there is such a strong emotional pain with having done this wrong. So let's dive into some of the science and understand what's going on and why this room didn't work the way Andy wanted it to. So here is a diagram that essentially shows the 2 different types of walls in Andy's room. The north wall is the one that's not decoupled. This one shows exterior siding, which actually he did mention is vinyl, which of course we know vinyl is very thin, flimsy, not really doing anything on a mass side. So really it's like he's only got some siding right here, or sheathing, which could be like 1/2 inch sheathing, or if he's lucky, it might be 3/4 inch sheathing, but we don't really know. And a lot of times this is the case when you're retrofitting. People often don't think about the exterior wall that faces the outside because they can't easily get to it or measure the thickness of it. Then you have the stud wall here with 2 layers of 5/8 inch drywall like he put on, and then there's fiberglass bat or mineral wool insulation in the center. Either insulation is fine. And then you have the decoupled wall, the south wall here, that shows the exterior of that wall is just the 2 layers of drywall and the 2x4 stud wall, and then you get the genie clip system here and the 2 layers of drywall here. So you can see the different types of walls here, and we're going to look at what does that mean from a performance standpoint by looking at the STC rating. Let's dive into that right now. All right, so now let's look at the lab test data for the 2 walls that I showed earlier. So I'm going to zoom in here and show you what this looks like. So the north wall is the yellow highlighted wall. We have wood studs, R13 insulation, double 5/8 inch drywall one side, and single 5/8 on the other side. Again, for the ability to say, hey, the outside sheathing is roughly the same as a 5/8 inch layer of drywall. If it's 1/2 inch sheathing, it'll be a little bit less, and the STC rating will be even lower. So keep that in mind. Then we get the STC rating of 39 and the OITC rating of 30. For those of you who may not know, OITC ratings are for low frequency particular. They take into account things exactly what Andy is fighting, like the low rumble of trucks and highway noise. So that is what OITC is, and it's always going to be lower than STC because the ability to stop low frequencies is much more difficult with the type of assemblies we usually see in construction. So that said, now if we look at green, we're looking at wood studs with the R13 insulation, 2 layers of 5/8 inch drywall and genie clips, and then 2 layers of 5/8 inch drywall on the other side. That gives us a whopping STC 64 and an OITC of 49. This is way more into the range of what I typically usually build in all of the designs I do. The reason, I can confirm the results will work and the client will be happy. If we start to go into the lower ranges, that's where the low frequency noise is really going to start getting through, and other noises as well, like even potentially hearing your neighbor talk through a wall when they're only 4 feet away. That can still happen when your STC rating is on the lower end of 39 or even 37. So keep that in mind. This is a dangerous territory to be in, and now you can see why. Just to go back to our other example here, you can see that this wall was the STC 64 wall, and this is the STC 39 wall. The real big difference is one more layer of drywall, but the biggest difference is the blue representing the genie clip and decoupling. Decoupling is so important in sound isolation, and if you don't do it on 2 walls, you're going to get the problems like Andy ran into. So the next thing we're going to talk about is what happens when you realize your design did not meet your expectations and suddenly you are tired, you're exhausted, but you still want to fix the problem. And so that's why Andy kept emailing me even after our consulting relationship ended, and I was trying to help him think through all of the problems, which led to this wonderful video. So the important thing is that what Andy's doing is totally normal, trying to problem solve, say, hey, there's got to be some easy solution to fix this. There's got to be. And this is a DIY trap many people fall into, and especially they start going to exactly what Andy did, which is green glue and MLV. Let's take a look. So you can see here that Andy mentions right away, I had one regret. I think that I didn't try green glue and or a 3rd layer of drywall on the 2 walls that only received a 2nd drywall layer and no decoupling. He says, I know you aren't a fan of green glue, but I do wonder if that would have helped on those 2 walls. The answer is that green glue actually would have helped. Recently, we did a video last week, which you can watch, all about how green glue actually adds a lot of STC points when it's rigidly connected. So in a wall like the north wall that's not decoupled, green glue helps. Ironically, in a wall that is decoupled, green glue is a waste of money. So keep that in mind, and you don't get better results using green glue. So in a way, he still would have been better off genie clips and doing it right, but as a fixed job, adding some green glue is not the worst idea in the world. So that is, now he's thinking through, okay, what can I do? Here he talks about GIK saying, hey, can I get some more base traps? And GIK says, hey, base trapping will help In some ways, GIK is kind of right, but kind of wrong. Acoustic treatment, as a lot of us know, does not help with sound isolation. But once the low frequency sounds are in the room, adding bass traps could help to absorb some of those lower frequencies. But again, low frequency truck rumble can get so low that it's even hard for acoustic bass traps to fully get that sound to become absorbed and turn into heat. The first thing he should have done is more mass and decoupling, as we saw in the beginning of this video with those STC charts. This next part here is worth checking out. I'm wondering whether it would be worthwhile to remove the exterior vinyl siding on those two walls so I can add a 2-pound MLV layer to the exterior wood sheathing and then put the vinyl siding back up. It's at the gable north wall. Again, very much a typical idea of saying, hey, can I just get MLV? MLV seems like a catch-all fix. It's kind of a fancy product. It's not just like more drywall, mass, or plywood. It technically flexes. It's got what's known as damping abilities to damp sound waves. But at the end of the day, MLV is not something you should put on your exterior wall. Not necessarily exterior rated. It'll degrade over time. It's also just really expensive. The better option, I told him, was to actually go through and add more mass to your outside wall using typical sheathing plywood. So adding 1 or even 2 layers of 3/4 inch plywood to his exterior wall would help. It still doesn't lead to the decoupling. It only helps with mass law, which means with every doubling of mass on your wall, you actually get 3 to 6 decibels of reduction, which is not much. That's not even a halving of sound. So it takes a ton of mass to stop sound when you don't decouple at all. Hence why building double walls and using clips and channel is always my preferred way of sound isolation. I wanted to point out this next part of his email because this is another DIY thing. I've seen it a lot on YouTube. A lot of people get into this. Green glue, as we've discussed many times, is a non-starter for you. I've since changed my tune on this, and I'll let Andy know that green glue could work on the interior, but not on the exterior. I wonder about putting exterior grade carpet glue when then whatever thickness of MDF that will fit under the existing vinyl siding when reinstalled. Again, MDF should never be used on the exterior. That'll also degrade and fall apart. It's just like drywall. It can't go on the exterior. And then his asking about using the MLV is the next thing he says here. Better than MLV, assuming the insulation against MLV because it might choke the structure's ability to expel moisture in the walls, which is another thing to think about. We have to think about the walls that breathe as well, and you have to think about climate exchange here with the vapor barrier. So it's always a complex situation. Again, hopefully this is showing you there's so much that goes into this that working with a professional is always a smart idea and not just isolating one wall when you should look at the full together. I also want to mention that carpet glue is not something you should use. Some people swear by it. I would never touch it. It's kind of become this folk myth out there. Really, you shouldn't use products that haven't been lab tested, especially on bigger projects where you're spending a ton of money. The stakes are really high. Carpet glue is not proven to do this. And even with green glue, like I said before, green glue is helping you a little bit, but you really should be decoupling and not using any glue. Just keep all that in mind. So at the end of the day, I see that Andy only has 2 real paths forward. He can add some extra mass to the exterior, making his wall heavier on the exterior side and balancing it out with the 2 layers of drywall, or he can rip out the whole wall and do the acoustic clips and channel and do it right on the inside. I personally think that ripping it out and doing the acoustic clips on the inside is by far the best use of your time and money if you're going to do anything. But let's take a look again at that STC chart to kind of look at the difference in potential outcomes. So Andy had mentioned using MLV on the outside, adding another 2 pounds. Drywall weighs about 2.4 pounds, 2.3 pounds. So it's actually heavier. And if you look at the lab data here that says just using double 5/8 inch drywall on both sides of a typical 2x4 stud wall, your STC rating only increases by 1 point. So from 41 and 32 by 2 points there. In my opinion, not worth the cost at all of ripping off the outside of your wall. If you do the 5/8 inch drywall and come back over here and do it right, or actually, sorry, if he did this one over here with the single 5/8 inch drywall and then a double drywall on the other side. That gets him to 61 and 42. So clearly the better option out of the two options. It's just that you can't deny the numbers there. So that's obviously what you could do. He could potentially add green glue and then a third layer of drywall in the inside, but I would argue again that that's going to cause mess and construction, and you might as well, if you're going to do construction, do it right. Don't just add green glue. So yeah, the numbers don't lie. All right, so Andy's been a great sport in letting me make an example out of him on the internet, but the truth of the matter is this is why SPYS Designs has gotten to the point where we are today, where we're not doing group consulting, we're not compromising on the systems we know work, and we are guaranteeing much better results for our clients. We're getting specific scientific engineered results that come from the data and the test data and the labs, and also the experience of having built dozens and dozens of these studios all over the world. So with that said, I want to make sure that you don't make these same mistakes. And one of the best ways to go about deciding if you're on the right track with your own sound isolated room is to take our Soundproof site assessment. So this is a quick assessment, asks you a few questions, you get specific answers designed around your space that gives you an idea of whether you're starting in the right location to begin with. And if you can't change locations, you're still getting a score that helps you understand what you're going to be up against when you go out and design your studio. So to take that assessment, you can just go to soundproofyourstudio.com/plan. That's soundproofyourstudio.com/plan and take the site assessment right away. My name is Wilson Harwood, and I am the founder and owner of SPYS Designs, and we design sound isolated rooms all over North America and Canada.